entire globe involving hundreds of different cultures explaining the same phenomenon by different names.
The nature of the footprints, namely their remarkable consistency, their biomechanical appropriateness, those aspects that are extremely compelling.
Hey guys, welcome to the Bigfoot Influencers. My name is Dana Halloran.
And I'm Tim Halloran. We are thrilled you're here.
Yep, absolutely. We have a very special guest today. We're super excited to have Craig Woolheater on as our influencer. And we do just want to apologize for the last podcast where basically the camera fell off the table during the podcast. So Tim did some clever editing and fixed it the best that we can. So now we actually are using a new camera. I like actually my darker hair in this camera. Like,
well, yeah.
What do you think? We look tan and
I know
we look dark and handsome.
My Irish skin isn't showing as much.
So I actually like this camera better. So hey Tim, why don't you tell them about the book giveaway?
Oh yeah. So a couple things we got going on. So if you head on over to the Bigfoot Influencers, sign in, you'll see a thing that pops up.
The website.
On the website, bigfootinfluencers.com. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're gonna give away a book. I think we're gonna announce it next week on the 31st. I think we'll have we're scheduled to have Matt Pruitt, so we'll do it right before Matt Pruitt's recording. That'll be his recording, actually, not when it goes live. But
right.
And so that'll be fun. So I'm excited to have Matt too. So we're going to do that. Make sure you go to the bigfootinfluencers.com and you can see how you can enter for a free autograph book.
A free autograph book. Which book is it though? Matt's or yours?
I'm sorry.
Make sure you tell them, baby.
It's of this book,
Yay!
The Bigfoot Influencers.
So somebody can win a free book.
And I don't even know if I told you this.
Okay, great.
So yesterday,
he's always keeping things from me.
Yesterday, I completed, I can't tell you who, the first interview for book number 2.
See, I didn't know that. You are always hiding stuff from me. This is what happens when you have busy lives.
Yeah, when you're working all the time.
Yeah, you learn things while you're on your podcast in front of a camera.
Yeah,
so you're not going to tell everybody who it is?
Okay.
No. Are you going to tell me who it is later?
Yeah, I'll tell you.
All right, you better. You're not going to get any dinner. So everybody, let's go ahead and introduce our guest.
Yeah, so Craig Woolheater has just an amazing guest that we're having today. Craig's been around. I think his story goes back to when he was about 10 years old. He had a fascination with the subject, and then being from Texas, there's just a lot of things that had happened historically down there that he followed. And in 1994, Craig had his own sighting, which we may possibly talk about.
Oh my God. Well, we definitely have to talk about. Yeah.
And then, most folks have heard it, but
right.
And then he's just done so much throughout history, not only in the state of Texas, but he's touched this subject globally. So just super excited to have him here, and we're going to bring him in.
Yay.
Hey,
Craig, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's the Hallorans.
It's the Hallorans. That's right.
How are you guys doing today?
We're doing good. How about you?
Well, it's sweltering here in Texas. I mean, all week it's like 104, 105, 106, 107. So,
yeah, we were in Missouri a couple of weeks ago, and we flew from Springfield, Missouri to where was it? Dallas. And I remember getting there and looking at my iPhone, and the temperature was like 108. I'm like, what? That's crazy. I mean, thank God we didn't have to leave the airport, and then we just flew home to Philadelphia. But I was like, boy, these Texas people, man, they got a lot to deal with over there in the summer, huh?
Well, yeah, but we typically don't have to deal with as much cold weather and snow and ice as you guys do. So
that's true.
It's a trade-off.
Well, it is.
It's
a good. Well, we actually don't deal with too much snow because we're really close to the ocean, and that kind of like keeps us warm here. But yeah, I hear you, honey. So
we don't, but every few years, Craig, we'll
get
have
hit.
Like a 30-inch storm that just shuts us down. So.
And then that's fun. Tim doesn't like the snow. I like the snow.
Yeah, because guess who's shoveling, Craig?
Dana.
Yeah, right.
So she loves it. I hate it. That's why, because snow equals work to
I'm
me.
inside all warm making soup or something, and he's
or,
out there shoveling.
You're out sledding, and
Yeah,
and
we don't have any
Tim
hills
is out
here.
slaving.
Yep, definitely.
Cool. So, hey, so why don't you, like, because before we get into all the Bigfoot stuff, tell us about some of your interests. So I know you have like interest in like cars and dining out and travel.
Well, cars are a big part of my life. Have always been, going back to, teenage years, building hot rods and such. And and I was involved with a local car club, the Lone Star Miata Club. I had a Miata that I fixed up quite a bit and was involved with the club and led, runs with, lots of cars. And I host here in Jefferson annually a Miata event in March. I call it March Miata Madness.
Oh, that's awesome.
And there's 4 generations of Miatas. And so it's kind of like the final 4, with the car show, coming down to a best in show, which Miata is the best. So we do that. And then, I have several other Bigfoot related events that I host throughout the year.
That requires you to travel as well.
Yeah, I haven't done as much here lately, but I used to travel, the whole circuit, the Pacific Northwest. I went to the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, going way back to the first year that I went was in 2000. And I went almost every year up through 2014. And just, I haven't been back yet. I've been meaning to get up there, but I'm going to the event that's here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in a week and a half, the Dogman Cryptid Conference that the Paranormal Roundtable is putting on. And so I do travel to some events and not as much as I used to. Like I said, I used to, go to all of the ones in British Columbia and Pacific Northwest and Northern California, all that stuff. And even, I used to attend the Bigfoot Discovery Days in Felton, California there near Santa Cruz. And so, I've done a lot of networking over the years. As a matter of fact, that's how I got the idea to start the Texas Bigfoot Conference. Was I attended, in 2000, attended the Ohio Bigfoot Conference there. And, I was very new into Bigfoot research, like only 1 year into it, and decided that, there was nothing like that in Texas that, I was like, I bet I can put together something like this. And so I started planning and I really felt a sense of camaraderie there in Ohio. And so I planned the first one. Unfortunately, my first one was on September 15th, 2001, which was 4 days after 9/11. So had, guest speakers that weren't able to fly in and such, but we still managed to pull it together the Saturday after 9/11, 4 days later. And we still had about 135 people that attended that day.
Wow.
That's pretty good.
Well,
yeah.
Craig, I will say something about the Ohio Bigfoot Conference. Mark DeWorth thinks the world of you, so I can tell you that. And since you stopped coming in 2014, there's something you're missing out on. These guys that are there every year, so you better get there the next year.
That's the Hallorans?
Yes,
the Hallorans are always there. Yeah.
Why aren't the Hallorans down here in Texas?
I know, Craig.
It's a little bit more of a hike for us. Like we drive to Ohio. It takes us 8 hours?
Well, with you, yeah.
With me.
Well, you can fly to Texas in 3 hours. See, look at that.
Yeah, I know. I know.
The time savings.
I hear you. Maybe you'll convince us by the end of the show.
Well, you're missing out on a good time here.
We're going to get into that later too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So that was cool because that was definitely one of the questions I wanted to ask you was about founding the TBRC.
Well, that's still a little different than the conference.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was the conference, the TB. Oh, okay. What does that mean then?
Well, that's great.
There's another great question for you. Go ahead.
Well, that's a research organization I co-founded in 1999, the Texas Bigfoot Research Center, where myself and Luke Gross, we banded together. We met online in one of the, back in the late 1990s, there was not that great of a presence of Bigfoot on the internet. There were message boards and forums mainly. And, that's where I went to after, having my personal sighting in 1994. It was just something that happened, and didn't really talk about it after getting home or, to anybody really, until I got, met people on the message boards and told my story, and, met people and, started talking to people, and, met a gentleman, and then we decided to form a research organization and put up a website with a sighting report submission form, and, join the team, people that wanted to get involved, and it just kind of took off. And so, it was just a really cheap Angel Fire free website, but we started getting reports in and started going out and doing investigations. We focused on the 4-state region of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana, basically where we could drive and investigate a report on site, within a day's time. And so that was our focus, those 4 states, and just built a following, and, started hosting the conference.
Very cool. So why do you think, Craig, that Texas is such a hot spot for Bigfoot sightings?
Come down here right now and you'll see why it's a hot spot.
Well, I kind of know the answer. I just want you to share it with the audience. So,
well, veteran researcher and investigator John Green surmised that, Sasquatch reports increase in areas where you have more than 20 inches of annual rainfall. And here in East Texas, we have approaching 50 to 60 inches of annual rainfall. And, for any wildlife, you have to have 3 things. You have to have a food source, you have to have water, and you have to have cover. And we have that in abundance here. And, while there's, I think, Texas is pretty high up on the list of sighting reports that are reported. There's the vast majority of them are in the eastern third of the state, where it's heavily forested, lots of rainfall. People think of Texas, and, if they've never been here, probably their reference is watching the show Dallas back in the 80s and 90s. And, they see tumbleweeds and prairies and far west Texas is like that. But East Texas, I remember the first time that was traveling with John Bindernagel, Dr. John Bindernagel from Vancouver Island, and driving with him out here. And he said that, once we entered the piney woods of East Texas, it reminded him of the Pacific Northwest. And, it's lots of trees, lots of evergreens, lots of water sources. It's a good habitat for, Sasquatch.
And then do you guys have bears there in that area?
Well, bears are coming back into East Texas. They were here before, but, they do come in to East Texas. They don't, just like I figure Bigfoot, they don't recognize state boundaries and say, oh no, we're leaving southeast Oklahoma. We can't cross over into Texas. There aren't any bear in Texas. No, there's bear here. And they're seen ever so often. That's an interesting story to talk about as far as our research back 15 years ago. We were contacted. We had a research operation where we had game cameras in several places. We also, up in southeastern Oklahoma, we had the Texas Bigfoot Research Center, and then we reorganized as the Texas Bigfoot Research Conservancy in 2007. But we had game cameras, and we had hair snares that were set up, and there was so many, in southeast Oklahoma, especially black bears that, they would, basically attack our cameras. They can smell the petroleum products in there and were attracted to it. And so we had to get, steel plate bear, camera boxes, bear boxes to protect our equipment. And, we had hair snares set up and we were, collecting bear hair samples is the, what we really got a lot of. And Texas Parks and Wildlife actually contacted us and wanted, us to send, hair samples, bear hair samples to them so they could use DNA to test where the bears were coming from. We actually, collected samples also in Texas, in Southeast Texas. And so we worked with that governmental agency. We worked with several governmental agencies, which, people may not know, but with our camera trap project that we had cameras also down in the big thicket of Southeast Texas. And that was, maintained, governed by the National Park Service. And we had to submit an application for a permit, but we submitted applications for permits to do a camera trap study looking for Bigfoot. And the National Park Service actually issued us permits for that project. And, it was, we had to submit, a copy of each photo that we obtained. And we also had to, submit an annual report of our findings, and then, they would issue us another permit for the next year. But we worked, like I said, in conjunction with the National Park Service there in the big thicket. We at one time had cameras in Sam Houston National Forest that we were working with the permission of the is that the U.S. Forest Service? I'm pretty sure it's U.S. Forest Service. We also worked, the famed Area X. That was actually land that was governed by the Nature Conservancy that we worked with permission there. So, I mean, we worked with government agencies. As a matter of fact, when we were working down in the big thicket, we went to, we had over 20 people down there and used their research laboratory, which was, a lab with a laboratory and, bunks and laundry facilities and a kitchen that accredited scientific research organizations were allowed to use. And when we went to go submit an application for that, there was a drop-down list on their website of the organizations that were already in their database. And when we went down the drop-down list, the Texas Bigfoot Research Center was in their database of research organizations that were approved to use that facility.
Wow. So that's so cool.
We had use of that facility with a lab and everything to base out of for operations there. And so, I mean, I feel that we were fairly well respected with the, in the scientific community. What began as that organization continues their operations now as the North American Wood Ape Conservancy. Myself, I really don't do any research of any kind anymore. I still follow up, reports, and we investigate, sighting reports that come in, but not involved in any large scale research or, operations anymore. They have continued that work with, what they're doing. And so, like I said, my skills are in organization. And I wasn't an outdoorsman. I was a Boy Scout when I was a teenager. I wasn't, military or, anything like that, a wildlife tracker. But I assembled a team of people that had all those other skills that could do those types of things. And so that's the deal. And then I resigned from the organization in 2010 to focus on personal life and business. And then, they went on to rename their organization and continue their research. And so, I still do the annual conference. I do several other events that, like I said, I went to Bigfoot conferences earlier on and networked and made friends. And, some of the best friends in my life, are friends that I've met through Bigfoot. And I've always told people that, at least 50% of this is the camaraderie. So, like I said,
yeah, we definitely agree with you on that one, Craig. We've met a lot of great people in this field.
Sure. And, there's a lot of it, that, in the trenches that a lot of those friendships were formed. We had people that were out there, hiking in the swamps. As a matter of fact, one of your past interviewees and a speaker at my upcoming Bigfoot conference, Daryl Collier, actually came down with dysentery from hiking in the swamp. I mean,
how does that happen?
Well, when you're submerged in water with, bacteria, viruses, whatever in there, you can contract that stuff. Wow. I mean, we've had personnel on missions that have contracted Lyme disease, being bitten by ticks or whatever. I mean, it's
right.
It's
I just felt like you needed to drink the water to get dysentery, but maybe even if it's a little splash or a drop that gets, yeah.
Well, I had a theory, but I won't mention it.
It's PG-13 maybe, right? Our audience. And I'm not sure if that has related to
I don't even want to think about that. Right. Anyway, Craig, I have a question to ask you. So, before we get into all the other questions, let's give everybody, because I know everybody knows who you are, but we also have some new viewers that are just newly into the Bigfoot world and they want to learn about you. So let's just pretend that you haven't told the story 1,000 times. Can you tell us about your what got you interested in this subject? Was obviously your sighting. So let's hear about your sighting that you had.
Well, it goes back to when I was a child.
Okay.
And actually, it was before I was 10 years old. And I'm telling how old I am, but in the summer of 1969, there was a famous case here in, Texas that wasn't far from, DFW. As a matter of fact, took place probably, less than 20 miles from downtown Fort Worth, was the case of the Lake Worth monster, where this upright bipedal hair-covered creature was seen. Really, the summer of '69 was, it was just a flurry of sightings. It was seen by hundreds of people, and it's generally regarded as the one localized creature that was seen by the most witnesses. I mean, it was seen by law enforcement personnel. This area is now a nature reserve, wildlife park and nature reserve. But back then it was just like, the Lover's Lane out at the lake. And teenagers would go out there and, drink and make out. And this creature, jumped on somebody's car and scared them and scratched the car, and they tore off into town and talked to the police. And so that summer it was seen many times out there at the Lake Worth, which is, like I said, less than 20 miles northwest of downtown Fort Worth. And I was interested in strange stuff as a kid, and my grandparents, it was actually on the front page of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, July 10th and July 11th, articles written by Jim Mars about this creature that was seen out there. And we're talking, we're 9-10 days away from man landing on the moon for the first time on July 20th, 1969. And the front page story was about this monster seen out at the lake, which was just incredible. And, I had a scrapbook, and my grandparents lived in Fort Worth and subscribed to the newspaper. So they saved, the articles for me. And then shortly thereafter, I ran across a book written by a local woman who was following up on these reports and wrote a book and self-published it, a woman named Sally Ann Clark. And so I was, that was into it. I read a book by John Keel the next year called Strange Creatures in Time and Space. 5 years later, he would write the book, The Mothman Prophecies. But this book came out in 1970, and I traded it for some kid at school. It had a cool cover. It had a Frank Frazetta artwork on the cover. And I traded a kid. I don't even remember what I traded, but I traded for that book. And then a couple of years later, I saw The Legend of Boggy Creek and its theatrical release here in the Dallas area. And, I live out in East Texas now, out here where I hold my events, but in Jefferson. But, my whole adult life, I lived in Dallas, Fort Worth. And so that was really something. And then, I was a Boy Scout in my teen years, and we're out camping out in East Texas. And, it was always, the Falk Monster was going to be around or whatever. So, but, I kind of outgrew that. I wasn't really a lifelong, Bigfoot fan until, May 30th, 1994. I was coming back on, driving. We had taken a road trip, me and it was 12 people total to New Orleans for Memorial Day weekend, and 5 different cars, and so we all caravanned out there. But on the way back, we, everybody left whenever they needed to go, and I was the last car to leave with my girlfriend and a friend that lived in the same building that I did, and we set out from New Orleans about 9:00 on Monday night, and when we drove down there, it was in the daylight. Well, now we're driving back in the dark, and the road we were on, that was just a 2-lane, highway, was now a desolate road out in the middle of nowhere, unlit. And, as we're driving, I had a little SUV at the time, a soft top, had the top rolled up. It was May 30th. The temperature was really nice. And my friend was in the back seat asleep, and we're entering, coming up through central Louisiana, and in my headlights, my girlfriend and I see a figure off to the right of the road. This was a 1991 vehicle, so the headlights were, just the sealed halogen beam. They weren't great, but we saw an upright figure off to the right of the road, no more than about 20 feet from the edge of the road. And as we get closer and closer, for maybe 6 to 8 seconds that we saw it at speed, we certainly saw more detail as we got close. And it was, an upright bipedal figure covered in hair that looked grayish in the lights. And it was actually walking parallel to the road. I don't know, I've always said that, I don't know exactly what it was, but I know what it wasn't. I know it wasn't a burned out tree stump. It wasn't a horse or a cow. It wasn't a guy and a hunter in a ghillie suit. It wasn't a prankster in a gorilla suit. I mean, in my mind, there's only one thing it could have been, and that was a Bigfoot. And so,
hey, Craig, was it walking towards you or away from you?
No, it was walking parallel to the road. So
but you were driving on the road.
Right, we were driving on the road, so its back was to us, okay. And as we passed it and saw its left side profile. But
so it didn't even jump off the road as you were passing by.
Oh no, it didn't even deviate from its path. It didn't look up. It didn't do anything.
Wow.
That area was darker than dark,
okay.
without lights on.
Okay.
So it didn't seem to startle it. It didn't, I'm sure if it, there were, we didn't see any cars on that road. I mean, because it was, at this time it was about 11 to 11:30 at night.
And where exactly were you when you saw this?
We were on Highway 71, which incidentally, once you pass Interstate 20 into Shreveport, it becomes the road that bisects Fouke, Arkansas, between Shreveport and Texarkana, Highway 71. It's just a different stretch of it. But it was about 35 miles southeast of Alexandria, Louisiana, as we were approaching a very small town called Bunkie. As we drove into town, it's 11:30 on a Monday night on Memorial Day. And Bunkie is a lot smaller back then than it is now. But, there was nothing. It's one of those towns where the sidewalks roll up at night. I mean, there was nobody out. There was nothing open. So we just slowed down through town. And on the way out, there was a small country church, a Methodist church, as it turns out, that we pulled into the parking lot of that church and discussed what we had saw. My girlfriend and I, my friend was still asleep in the back seat. And, as we had seen it, as we passed it, we both looked at each other and said, "Did you just see what I just saw?" simultaneously. And we agreed that we had. And I said, "Well, what do you think you saw?" And she goes, "I think I saw a Bigfoot." And I said, "Well, we've got to stop." And she's like, blank, blank. No, we're not stopping. Because, we're basically in an open convertible. Not that, a soft top with vinyl windows is going to do anything if it's down. But, the top was rolled up because the weather was so great. So that's the thing. We stopped in the parking lot at this church, talked for about 10 or 15 minutes. It had a light pole with an argon gas light on in the parking lot. And then we got back on the road. We had my friend in the back seat that was asleep had to be at work the next morning. And we still had at that point, I'm guessing 5.5 hours to go to get to Dallas. So we got back on the road and we didn't really talk about it on the road. And that's the other thing. This happened in 94 and we didn't really talk about it after that. It wasn't something strange that happened to us. I mean, I would watch, documentaries or anything came on, TV, but, didn't really tell anybody until I got internet. I didn't get internet service. And, kids nowadays are like, what? Until July of 97. I was 37 years old when I got internet access. And probably the first thing I looked up was, Bigfoot in, the Texas area, and found, a community of people. I mean, like I said, much smaller than it is today because there was just like message boards. I think the BFRO had a bare bones website up at that time. But I started talking to people on message boards. And like I said, I met a gentleman and we started the TBRC, the Texas Bigfoot Research Center, in June. It went live June of 1999. And, the rest is kind of history. We, like I said, started collecting reports and people started wanting to get involved what we were in. And the next year we went to the Ohio conference and I decided, I could do one of these. And while Jefferson is an ideal location, the fact that there are reports all in this area. I mean, Caddo Lake, which is the only natural lake in the state of Texas, is very, very close. Big Cypress Bayou flows through town that feeds into Caddo Lake. And so while it's an excellent area, but the reason it's here in Jefferson, the Bigfoot Conference, and why I live here now is because my parents bought a bed and breakfast in the late 90s here in Jefferson. And my mom was on the events committee for the Bed and Breakfast Association. So when I decided to put together an event, I used the resources that I had. And, my folks helped out, my mom and stepfather, here in town through, from 2001 to 2008 when the first run that was in Jefferson. And so that's why it's here in Jefferson. That's why now Jefferson is the Bigfoot capital of Texas. I wrote a proclamation and submitted it to the mayor, and the mayor signed it, which was actually the third proclamation that I had gotten. The first one was in 2005 that the town themselves took it upon themselves to write a proclamation. The third weekend in Jefferson in October is Texas Bigfoot Weekend, and that's generally when we hold the conference. And then they did one in 2016, celebrating the 15th anniversary of the Bigfoot Conference. And then in 2018, the one that proclaimed Jefferson the Bigfoot capital of Texas. As a matter of fact, I'm going next Monday to the county commissioners court meeting, and I'm presenting in county. It's a county resolution to have Jefferson declared that it's basically a safe habitat for Bigfoot.
Oh wow!
This county,
cool.
Marion County, and Jefferson. So, I'm going to do that. I mean, the town has really, gotten behind it. There's many stores here in town that carry Bigfoot merchandise, and a lot of the restaurants have, Bigfoot themed items on the menu. And so, it's really kind of gotten into it.
So over the years, Craig, I took advantage while you're coughing to jump in. Who attended, from 2001 to 2008? Can you share like some of the folks who were present?
Attended or spoke or?
Spoke, yeah.
Oh, if I don't need to be on camera, I've got a list of the speakers every year.
Oh, you just name a couple, that's fine.
Well, I mean, Dr. John Bindernagel, Lauren Coleman, John Kirk of the British Columbia Scientific Cryptozoology Club, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Chris Murphy. I co-curated a Bigfoot museum exhibit with actually the University of Texas. That was one of their campuses, the University of Texas at San Antonio. That one of their campuses is a museum, the Institute of Texan Cultures. And in 2006, we put together a 2,000 square foot Bigfoot exhibit titled Bigfoot in Texas ? And we had 4 half-day conferences, the duration of that exhibit. And we brought down Peter Byrne in 2006. That was the basis, the Pacific Northwest expeditions, and were financed by Tom Slick of San Antonio, and he had Peter Byrne working for him on the Yeti expeditions in the late 50s in the Himalayas, and when he started up the Pacific Northwest expeditions looking for Bigfoot, and I'm not sure exactly when that started. It may have been 59, but it was certainly 60 up until Tom Slick's unfortunate death, I believe in 64. He died in a plane crash at 46 years old, multimillionaire. But Peter Byrne had worked for him, and actually at that first inaugural conference that we did in San Antonio in 06 at that museum exhibit, like I said, Peter Byrne brought him in and spoke, and Tom Slick's niece had just written a biography about Tom Slick, Catherine Nixon Cook. And so she came and did a book signing at the museum of her book, about Tom Slick, who financed those expeditions. And, Peter Byrne was there, and it was a really cool event. But like I said, brought in Jimmy Chilcutt, who was a latent fingerprint expert at the Conroe Police Department, who examined, had the largest collection of non-human primate, hand and footprints, and was a fingerprint expert and examined Bigfoot casts and found, dermal ridges in these casts. He spoke. Rick Knoll, veteran Bigfoot researcher from the Pacific Northwest. We had a ton of people in, over the years. Dr. Henner Fehrenbach, and then we reorganized as a 501c3 nonprofit, and at that point it wasn't dependent on just me. I was the director of the group, and I organized the conference, and everything was then done by committees, and other cities in East Texas started soliciting us to bring the event to larger venues, larger cities. They courted us to come, but going back in 2005, which was the most attended conference that we ever did, we had a lot of publicity around that conference. We had a 7-page cover spread in Texas Monthly Magazine that, that issue had the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders on the front and on the cover. And, it's, Bigfoot in East Texas, question mark on the cover. And it had a whole big article on the wrestling Von Erichs, who were a Texas phenomenon, but they were, popular worldwide. And then a 7-page spread, with Bigfoot Conference and the Bigfoot Research Organization and all that. And we had a 2-page spread in Texas Highways magazine. We had numerous television stations and newspapers out there at the conference that year. We had, we had a feature on the front page of the lifestyle section of USA Today with a photograph of Ken Gerhard holding up the Cripplefoot Bigfoot cast, the picture in USA Today. That weekend, it was a crawler on CNN. Bigfoot Conference in Texas draws hundreds.
Wow, that's amazing.
I mean, that year, 2005, was really something special. And I mean, we had, just a laundry list of big names: Kathy Moskowitz-Strain, Jeff Meldrum, Jimmy Chilcutt, Chris Murphy. Off the top of my head, I can't even list all the people that were there. It was a 2-day conference. We drew well over 500 people. And it was, like I said, after that, other cities wanted to bring the event there. And so it left Jefferson for 2009, went to Tyler. The thought amongst the committee was that, Tyler was 50 times as large as Jefferson and had, universities. And so that it would draw more attendance, and it really didn't. Here's one person that we brought to town. In 2009, we brought not only Bob Gimlin to town that year, but our keynote speaker Google it real quick, he wrote The Snow Leopard. He was Peter Matheson. Peter Matheson came and spoke at our Bigfoot conference. Had been written about the Yeti before and had huge interest. And
somebody else was talking about that. Who else was talking about that? Somebody else that we have interviewed.
Probably Daryl Collier. Probably
Daryl, or it could have been Daryl or Matt Pruitt.
I think it was Daryl.
Yeah,
maybe
Matt
it was
Pruitt.
Matt.
And Matt's next week. Y'all are doing Matt next week. They're both speaking. Matt and Daryl.
Yeah, so let's get into that. So first tell the audience when the date is.
In 2006, didn't hold one because we were involved in San Antonio and held 4 mini conferences and couldn't. I didn't want to try to put a, pardon my French, half-assed event together. So I just didn't do a conference that year. We had the event in San Antonio that ran from April through August, and with 4 half-day conferences. So a 2,000 square foot museum exhibit. So it was pretty, it was a lot of work leading up to that because, we supplied most of the stuff for the event. They got a copy of this. They borrowed Rick Knowles' copy of, his fiberglass copy of the Skookum cast that John Green made 2 copies of. He made a direct copy, and then he made the inverse of it. So he had a positive and negative, and one was John's and one was Rick's. And so Rick shipped his down here. We had the replica of the Skookum cast hanging on the wall in the museum. We even had Ben Radford, a skeptic. We had one weekend where we had Lauren Coleman and Ben Radford. I think that's probably the only Bigfoot conference that's ever been that actually invited a skeptic to speak. So we, had somebody speaking on both positions that weekend. But so this year it is October 20th and 21st. We've actually have, of our 6 speakers, 4 of them are females, which I don't know that that's ever been, the case at a Bigfoot conference. That's certainly, 2/3 of our speakers are female. We've got.
Can you recall who they are?
Oh, sure.
Mm-hmm.
We have Ashlyn Brown, who is a geneticist
Mm-hmm.
who has interested and had childhood encounters on their farm, and has written a set of 3 nonfiction books. But she's also a DNA scientist, a geneticist. Shelley Covington Montana, who is a hardcore researcher. She generally spends 4 months out of the year in the Pacific Northwest solo camping in the Pacific Northwest, conducting Bigfoot research and trying to get DNA evidence. We have Sabella Irwin, who is a BFRO, and she's also a BFRO field investigator. She's also she may be the curator for Texas for the BFRO, but she also leads expeditions, and she is an eyewitness sketch artist that she talks to eyewitnesses just like police sketch artists, and goes back and forth and takes their description of what they encountered, what they saw, and sketches that for the witness. We have, like I said, Matt Pruitt and Daryl Collier. Matt Pruitt, who just wrote The Phenomenal Sasquatch, and Daryl Collier speaking, as well as Maria Mayer from Expedition Bigfoot. She's a Nat Geo speaker. She has hosted Nat Geo shows. She's, one of the cast members on Expedition Bigfoot, and she's a primatologist. She, is hailed as the female Indiana Jones. She has, her biography that she wrote is, from pink boots to a machete. She, was a Miami Dolphins cheerleader. She's from Cuba. Went back to school. She got a degree in zoology, primatology, and she's actually discovered a species of lemur in the rainforest of Madagascar. So, I mean, she's not just, somebody who's on Expedition Bigfoot. I mean, she's, she is a scientist, and she is a world explorer. She's a member of the Explorers Club. I mean, she is, pretty awesome. Personal friends with Jane Goodall. That's our lineup of speakers for this year. We've got a private catered dinner Friday night at a local restaurant with the speakers, and there will be a special presentation there at that dinner Friday night. And then Saturday, there's the conference all day. And then we also have a VIP portion where we have a catered dinner by a local barbecue restaurant that's excellent Texas barbecue. And there'll be another special presentation at that event also. That these 2 special presentations are not repeated during the conference itself. So, I urge people that want to get the full experience, to try and come both Saturday during the day and Friday and Saturday nights to see everything that's there. And, they'll get a chance to sit down. We have the opportunity to, sponsor a speaker where you can actually sit at the speaker's table during the dinner and the presentations on Friday and Saturday night. So you actually, seated at a table for 8. So there's 7 opportunities for people to actually sit down with, Maria Mayer and pick her brain about Bigfoot or lemurs or being a mom of 6 kids. So there's opportunities to actually sit and carry on one-on-one conversations with these speakers, as well as meeting them and listening to them talk, and getting a book or whatever from them, but to actually sit down and have dinner with them and commiserate about Bigfoot research. So there's a lot of cool opportunities at the event. It's certainly not one of the largest Bigfoot conference. I have a building that has a set building capacity, and it's the largest one here in Jefferson. And once we reach our capacity, that's it. So there's been years where we've had it stuffed to capacity. As a matter of fact, 5 years ago, it was over capacity for Bob Gimlin when he was here for his 87th birthday. We had a birthday party for Bob Gimlin, had a birthday cake, Bigfoot birthday cake, and we presented him with a really nice, I don't remember what brand it was, but a really nice $800 pistol for his birthday. And the building was packed, and I had to turn people away at the door that year, but it was a really special event. And
so you suggest people to buy tickets ahead of time?
Yeah. So, I mean, it generally sells out online ahead of time, just like the Ohio conference. Heck, the Ohio conference usually sells out the first day, the first 15 minutes. You have a limited capacity for that lecture room, just like we do. I mean,
I think also
Mark has
that makes the Bigfoot, the Ohio Bigfoot Conference so special is also where the conference is held.
Oh yeah,
in the state park. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing.
And there are sightings there in the park. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to remember what year it was, but I actually saw not a Bigfoot, but I saw, may have been 2013, coming back from dinner, because we always used to go eat at Theo's.
Yeah,
we're still doing it.
We're still doing that.
I love Theo's. They have awesome pie. They have awesome hot dog. They have awesome everything.
Yeah.
But coming back, late at night, driving, actually saw a mountain lion, a cougar, cross the road. At first, I thought it was a deer because it looks so big, but then it actually ducked under. It was crossing the road where there was a guardrail there, and with the wooden post and then the metal rail, it actually ducked under the rail to go, and it didn't leap over, like a deer would have jumped over, but this thing slunk under the guardrail, and I definitely saw its long tail in the headlights. It wasn't a bobcat; it had a long tail. So I mean, there's plenty of wildlife there. I know there's been Bigfoot reports. I've never experienced anything. I mean, I've only been there for the conference when I've gone, but I did see, whatever you want to call it, a puma, a mountain lion, a cougar. Right. But saw that Craig, in the park on the way to the lodge.
I wanted to get back to you and your conference too. Of course, we talk about Ohio all day if we wanted, but so will you have vendors there and things like that? So can the public?
Yes, we've got vendors. We've got vendors that are certainly not the amount of vendors they have up there, but we have people with Bigfoot arts and crafts and shirts and stickers and all kinds of stuff. Plus, the speakers will have tables with their books and their stuff that, Matt will be, signing and selling copies of his new book. I'm sure Maria will be signing copies of her book. She's got a book, a book that just came out not that long ago that was written about her. That's illustrated, like animated illustrated book about her life. So there'll be vendors there with cool stuff, and like I said, day-long talks, great food and special presentations, and like I said, really getting a chance to rub shoulders with these speakers. You'll have access to go up and talk to them at their tables. Like I said, the opportunity to sit down with them at dinner and talk. So you can have those types of opportunities and to enjoy. And there's plenty of stuff. Jefferson is a great little town. There's all kinds of antique shops and boutiques and good restaurants and fudge shops, and there's a nature trail where we do have one of those big 6-foot statues out on the Bigfoot statue, and then we have a nature trail where there's
the weather's got to be wonderful then too, right?
Sure, October. That time of year it's a lot nicer than it is right now.
I'm starting to feel like we need to go.
Oh, Craig. Craig's been on me for the last couple of years. So.
I know, Craig, but I don't like hot weather.
October. It's going to be nice.
Will it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Look up on the Weather Channel. See what their prediction is.
Okay,
I mean,
I will.
the Farmer's Almanac is predicting an extremely cold winter, and while it won't be winter yet, surely it will have cooled down by then.
And what are the dates again, Craig?
October 20th, 21st, and then generally on the 22nd, the Sunday, we sometimes do both of them, but we generally go and have lunch out on Caddo Lake with the speakers and some of the friends and the volunteers and such. And then, special friends like you guys would probably, I bet Dana would surely get an invitation. Dana would surely get an invitation. I don't know about Tim, but
yeah.
I guess if you're bringing her down, I guess we
could. Or something.
Yeah, if you're bringing her down for the event, then we could probably let you in.
He's working you hard.
You might have to sit out on the patio.
So I'll sit in the car and wait. So the best place for how do people buy tickets?
Well, the tickets are on Eventbrite, but you can go to Facebook, look up, 2023 Texas Bigfoot Conference. There's, event page for it there with all the information, the speakers, their bios, a link to Eventbrite to get your tickets. I've also organized and hosted the Falk Monster Festival coming up next year in April. Falk is less than an hour away from Jefferson. We typically, maybe take a caravan up to Falk for people that have never been there to see, where the Legend of Boggy Creek was filmed. Lots of good places to go eat.
Cool.
And
well, I think you might have convinced us.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna go downstairs and look at my calendar on the fridge and see what's going on.
Well, go ahead and take a pen or a Sharpie and circle those dates. Don't pencil them in, ink them in.
Get a big permanent marker.
Yeah.
Yes, and you guys definitely should come down.
We want to. So
yeah, we do.
You come down. I'll let you get up for 5 minutes and talk about your show.
Oh my God!
In front of the hundreds of people.
Awesome.
So there you go.
Right.
There's
all
even
right,
more.
Craig, you have been awesome. Craig's like the coolest dude ever. We loved you, Craig. You're awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all your information about what you've done over the years with the subject, and we look forward to meeting you in person.
Well, yeah, you guys included me as one of the Bigfoot influencers, and so
it's been awesome having you on the show. And we're gonna have to really consider the October.
We have to meet in person in 2 months.
All right. Thanks
there
again,
we go.
Craig.
Thanks, Craig. Thank you so much, honey. Have a great night, and we look forward to meeting you in person.
Yes, and you have 5 minutes to talk about your show in front of everybody.
Yay!
Oh, yay! Thanks, Craig.
Thanks, Craig.
See, you can write it off as an expense.
There you go. See ya.
Thanks, Craig.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right.
He's a cool dude.
Yeah, he is.
I like
so
Craig.
We got to consider Texas. He wouldn't become last couple of years, and it's just.
And we're always looking for something new and fun to do, and we have been saying that. I know we need to get away as a couple, not necessarily as a Bigfoot conference, like a romantic, like beachy kind of thing, but it's a lot of fun, and it's cool that we both have the same interests.
We'll get to hang out with some friends.
Yeah, so that could be really cool.
And meet some new people.
Yeah. And it's definitely always fun to go to these events. I have to tell you, like if you're into the Bigfoot thing, going to one of these events is just like, it just really opens your eyes a lot to what's going on in the world of Bigfoot. And you get to talk to people who have witnessed stories who wouldn't necessarily want to share them publicly, but you sit next to them at the dinner and they're telling you their story and you can tell them your story. So I definitely recommend.
A lot of common-minded people, which is fun.
Yep,
so
it is fun.
We thank you guys. Make sure you go over to the Untold Radio Network, like and subscribe.
Go
back and check out last week's episode on Wednesday night on Doug's Untold Radio show. Alex Highcheck and his girlfriend Elise hosted themselves without Doug. So go back to last week and watch that. That was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun.
So until next time, we'll see you guys